The seamstress whose feet were tired, the pastor whose voice echoes through the ages, they weathered some hard winters. It was for them, as it is for us, difficult in the dead of winter to sometimes see spring coming. They too sometimes felt their hopes deflate. And yet each season, the frost melts, the cold recedes, the sun reappears. So it was for earlier generations, and so it will be for us. What we need to do is to just ask what lessons we can learn from those earlier generations about how they sustained themselves during those hard winters, how they persevered and prevailed. Let us, in this Joshua generation, learn how that Moses generation overcame. Let me offer a few thoughts on this. First and foremost, they did so by remaining firm in their resolve. Despite being threatened by sniper fire or planted bombs, by shoving and punching and spitting and angry stares, they adhered to that sweet spirit of resistance, the principles of nonviolence that had accounted for their success. Second, they understood that as much as our government and our political parties had betrayed them in the past, as much as our nation itself had betrayed its own ideals, government, if aligned with the interests of its people, can be and must be a force for good. So they stayed on the Justice Department. They went into the courts. They pressured Congress. They pressured their president. They didn't give up on this country. They didn't give up on government. They didn't somehow say government was the problem. They said, we're going to change government. We're going to make it better. Imperfect as it was, they continued to believe in the promise of democracy, in America's constant ability to remake itself, to perfect this union. Third, our predecessors were never so consumed with theoretical debates that they couldn't see progress when it came. Sometimes I get a little frustrated when folks just don't want to see that even if we don't get everything, we're getting something. You know, King understood that the desegregation of the armed forces didn't end the civil rights movement because black and white soldiers still couldn't sit together at the same lunch counter when they came home. But he still insisted on the rightness of desegregating the armed forces. That was a good first step, even as he called for more. He didn't suggest that somehow by the signing of the Civil Rights Act that somehow all discrimination would end, but he also didn't think that we shouldn't sign the Civil Rights Act because it hasn't solved every problem. Let's take a victory, he said, and then keep on marching. Forward steps, large and small, were recognized for what they were, which was progress. Fourth, at the core of King's success was an appeal to conscience that touched hearts and open minds, a commitment to universal ideals, of freedom, of justice, of equality, that spoke to all people, not just some people. The King understood that without broad support, any movement for civil rights could not be sustained. That's why he marched with the white auto worker in Detroit. That's why he linked arm with the Mexican farm worker in California and united people of all colors in the noble quest for freedom. Of course, King overcame in other ways as well. He remained strategically focused on gaining ground, his eyes on the prize constantly, understanding the change would not be easy, understand the change wouldn't come overnight, understanding that there'd be setbacks and false starts along the way, but understanding, as he said in 1956, that we can walk and never get weary, because we know there is a great camp meeting in the promised land of freedom and justice. And it's because the Moses generation overcame that the trials we face today are very different from the ones that tested us in previous generations. Even after the worst recession in generations, life in America is not even close to being as brutal as it was back then. for so many. That's the legacy of Dr. King and his movement. That's our inheritance. Having said that, let there be no doubt. The challenges of our new age are serious in their own right. And we must face them as squarely as they face the challenges they suffer. I know it's been a hard road we've traveled this year to rescue the economy. But the economy is growing again. The job losses have finally slowed. And around the country, there are signs that businesses and families are beginning to rebound. We are making progress. I know it's been a hard road that we've traveled to reach this point on health reform. I promise you I know. But under the legislation I will sign into law, insurance companies won't be able to drop you when you get sick. And more than 30 million people, our fellow Americans, will finally have insurance. More than 30 million men and women and children, mothers and fathers, won't be worried about what might happen to them if they get sick. This will be a victory, not for Democrats. This will be a victory for dignity and decency, for our common humanity. This will be a victory for the United States of America. Let's work to change the political system, as imperfect as it is. I know people can feel down about the way things are going sometimes here in Washington. I know it's tempting to give up on the political process, but we put in place tougher rules on lobbying and ethics and transparency, tougher rules than any administration in history. It's not enough, but it's progress. Progress is possible. Don't give up on voting. Don't give up on advocacy. Don't give up on activism. There are too many needs to be met. Too much work to be done. Like Dr. King said, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Let us broaden our coalition, building a confederation not of liberals or conservatives, not of red states or blue states, but of all Americans who are hurting today and searching for a better tomorrow. The urgency of the hour demands that we make common cause with all of America's workers, white, black, brown, all of whom are being hammered by this recession, all of whom are yearning for that spring to come. It demands that we reach out to those who've been left out in the cold, even when the economy is good, even when we're not in recession. The youth in the inner cities, the youth here in Washington, D.C., people in rural communities who haven't seen prosperity reach them for a very long time. It demands that we fight discrimination, whatever form it may come. That means we fight discrimination against gays and lesbians, and we make common cause to reform our immigration system. And finally, we have to recognize, as Dr. King did, that progress can't just come from without. It also has to come from within. And over the past year, for example, we've made meaningful improvements in the field of education. I've got a terrific Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan. He's been working hard with states and working hard with the D.C. School District. And we've insisted on reform, and we've insisted on accountability, and we're putting in more money, and we've provided more Pell Grants and more tuition tax credits and simpler financial aid forms. We've done all that, but parents still need to parent. Kids still need to own up to their responsibilities. We still have to set high expectations for our young people. Folks can't simply look to government for all the answers without also looking inside themselves, inside their own homes, for some of the answers. Progress will only come if we're willing to promote that ethic of hard work, a sense of responsibility in our own lives. I'm not talking, by the way, just to the African-American community. Sometimes when I say these things, people assume, well, he's just talking to black people about working hard. No. I'm talking to the American community. Because somewhere along the way, we as a nation began to lose touch with some of our core values. You know what I'm talking about.